Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. So we're starting with this as I found the source. Heidi, would you like to read it again for us? Heidi, did you hear me?
I heard you. What page is that?
Oh, let's see now. It says 263?
283, Brother Shankara.
283.
As I found the source.
283.
Yes.
Got it. As I found the source. When your soul was born, it was like a still ocean.
Heidi, we can't hear you very well. Either sit closer or turn your sound up or something.
I'm doing both.
Okay.
How's that better?
That's better.
Okay. As I found the source. When your soul was born, it was like a still ocean that had yet to experience its infinite life. God then came to the shores of our souls and gazed upon the immaculate splendor that his divine heart created. He then took off his clothes and dove into us. Nothing on their own has your arms ever done. The movements of your feet are caused by the waves he stirred. Light baptizes life wherever it falls, and every religion and all upon this earth is a shadow. A shadow may move, but it has no real power of its own. Though it can affect the weak and frighten them, the men can use that darkness to exploit others. As I found the source of all we do, as I found the source of all our desires, so humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things. As I found the source. When your soul was born, it was like a still ocean that had yet to experience its infinite life. God then came to the shores of our souls and gazed upon the immaculate splendor that his divine heart created. He then took off his clothes and dove into us. Nothing on their own have your arms ever done. The movements of your feet are caused by the waves he stirred. Light baptizes life wherever it falls, and every religion has all upon this earth is a shadow. A shadow may move, but it has no real power of its own. Though it can affect the weak and frighten them, the men can use that darkness to exploit others. As I found the source of all we do, as I found the source of all our desires, so humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things.
Light baptizes life wherever it falls. What a powerful statement. Light brings to life, but in a sacred sense, baptizes. Light baptizes life wherever it falls. And every religion and all upon the earth, this earth, is a shadow of that light baptizing life. A shadow that is caused by that light that really struck me as the poem was being read this time. It allows us to take what we experience differently. It is the light that is the source of our being. And so, as the saint has done, she's tracked back to the source, the light. And then the poem ends. As I found the source of all we do, as I found the source of all our desires, so humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things. It puts a different complexion on everything we experience, seems to me. Heidi, just one quick question. Do you happen to know if June is all right? It's just that she's busy tonight, so she didn't join us.
Yeah, I don't know where, I haven't talked to her. I don't know if she's busy or if, why, I don't know why she's not here.
It just, she's become so dear.
I know it. And she'll usually call me and say, what page are we on? About 5 o'clock, and I haven't heard.
Well, she may be busy.
She may be busy. Is it just me, or did we not start here last week?
We didn't start here, we ended here last week.
Okay.
This was the last poem we read last week, and we kind of agreed among ourselves to start again with this one because it was such a pregnant poem that it deserved more attention.
Okay, I remember that part of it, but my markers are getting all mixed up, so
Okay.
I read way ahead for tonight, but okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to say anything about this poem? So humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things.
I find that very line curious that it says he had to become humble to say, yeah, I did all this. I mean, to admit that you created the whole universe doesn't seem like you'd have to become humble to say it. You'd have to feel like bragging a little bit.
Well, that is an interesting perspective. I don't have a ready answer for why the word humble is used there. It is the opposite of the word proud.
Or I think maybe it means that there's this reluctance to admit it.
I think you're right, yes.
And that shows humility.
Yes, I think you solved your own puzzle, dear. That sounds like it.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else have anything they want to say about it?
Often we think.
Oh, please,
Hello?
Haima, I'm sorry.
No problem, Brother Shankar, go ahead.
No.
Okay. Often we think others are doing things when they do things something strange, and why are they doing it? We think they are doing it. God is telling us he has caused all these things to happen. So often we do things, sometimes we don't understand why we did it last week or last month or last year. How did I do this? It just had to happen. It's like he is guiding us in that direction.
I think you're
He's in
absolutely
control
right.
of everything. He's saying, I'm in control of everything, not
I
you.
think you're right, Ima. And that certainly is a key to Jesus' statement of judge not, lest ye be judged.
That's right.
We can't judge.
Exactly.
The reason June came up in my mind, Heidi, and I miss her anyway, but she was particularly intrigued by this poem and seemed to want to discuss it more. So it's a shame that it's a shame she's not with us.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I feel the message of the poem in my heart, but my left brain wants to ask this question: is there any significance to the sentence that he then took off his clothes and dove into us?
Well, what are clothes? This is the way I understand it, so what are clothes? Clothes is what disguises us or adorns us, but it is a separation. It is a way of separating ourselves from our environment, other people. So it just seems to me when she's saying that he took away all that separated himself from us and dove into us. And therefore, when he did that and there was no separation, no duality, then we have this unity of I caused all things by diving in and causing the ripples that caused all things.
Thank you.
You know, Heidi, I think you may be right. Because I remember us reading this next poem.
Because see, the thing that June was the one who commented, yes, I caused all things. She was the one that said about this poem in that last sentence there that God gave us all a good mind and a good brain, you know?
Right.
And I think she was getting at the point that, I don't know, I commented like he created good and bad and all things, but then we have the, you know, a good mind to discern the difference and the free will of choice to do what we want with it. So she did comment on that. And
Yes, you're
talk
absolutely
about
right.
it a
That
little bit.
is what we started with last week.
See, I'm
You're
like,
ab-
going, y'all are making me think I'm crazy.
no, it's this old mind that doesn't hold things, Heidi.
Okay.
That's we should be starting this week with the Grail.
That's where my mark, that's where
that's
my marker was. See?
okay. So, Haima, would you like to read the Grail for us?
Sure, Brother Shankara. In a way, the grain can feel.
No. We've already done those poems.
Oh, you did that
That's
too.
what Heidi was saying. Yes,
Oh,
we're all the way up to page 287.
the Grail.
The Grail.
I see. Okay, good.
Heidi nailed it, and I disputed her because of this memory not being what it ought to be.
Oh, we're all in the same boat, Brother Shankara. Every now and then, mind wanders somewhere else. Here it is. The Grail. They are likely shy, young school kids, time and space, before the woman and the man who are intimate with God. The realized soul can play with this universe the way a child can a ball. A chalice, the Grail, my body became, for it held the Christ and he drank from me. Sanctified are our limbs, for every heart has touched God, though most with closed eyes. A holy relic is each creature, and beauty may worry about its comeliness waning. We fear dying till we know the truth of ourselves. The seams on my body are torn. I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. There is a divine world of light with many suns in the sky. I slept with my Lord one night. Now all that is luminous, I know we conceived. The Grail. They are like shy, young school kids, time and space, before the woman and the man who are intimate with God. The realized soul can play with this universe the way a child can a ball. A chalice, the Grail, my body became, for it held the Christ, and he drank from me. Sanctified are our limbs, for every heart has touched God, though most with closed eyes. A holy relic is each creature, and beauty may worry about its comeliness waning. We fear dying till we know the truth of ourselves. The seams on my body are torn. I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. There is a divine world of light with many suns in the sky. I slept with my Lord one night. Now all that is luminous, I know we conceived. Beautiful.
Anyone have anything to say about this one?
Did we talk about this one last week? Did
I
we
think this was the one we decided that we wanted to talk about again. I think that we did talk about it a little last week, yes.
Because I think I'm coming up with the same thing to say that I did last week, which I stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. I like that, and because it doesn't disregard the rest of the other regions. It just is saying I stepped from that one.
Yeah, the
And now
seams
I
of my body are torn, so I can do that. Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that is true of this and so many other poems in this book is that it stresses relationship with God.
Mhm.
Intimate. She was intimate with God. He drank from her. She slept with him. And it's interesting that the great researcher, scientist, PhD, Raymond Moody, when he was asked about God, he said, well, I really don't know anything about God. But then he went on to describe his relationship with God, and it was clear to him that God was not a thing. God was a relationship.
Uh, mm,
This was in an interview that Jerry, a friend of mine, Jerry Brunner, sent. And it's very interesting. Raymond Moody is the one who wrote that book, Life After Life, about near-death experiences. But his real research is anyway, I won't go off on Raymond Moody, but I just thought it was very interesting that in an echo of all of these things that we're reading in this book, that when he was asked about God, he said, God is way beyond my ability to know, but there is this relationship. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, so that reminds me, Brother Shankara, of the bhavas, different. I can't think of the English word for it, but relate to God as different. As a child, as a friend, as a.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting the rest of it, but it's about the relationships.
Yes, it is. It is all about relationship. What is my relationship to God? As you said, as a child, well, first there's the das, the dasya bhava, the contented relationship. Then there's the relationship of a child, of a servant, and it's usually translated as attitudes or ways of being with. But you correctly, that's exactly what the bhavas are about. And Sri Ramakrishna says, he identifies 5 as, and one of them is this attitude of a lover, which is the one that was mirrored in this poem.
I think it definitely makes the prayer more intimate when I try to relate to God, in whichever way appeals to me.
Yes, oh yes. We feel as if we're being received. We feel as if we're being heard. Very well said. More traffic than you think. Cindy, would you like to read this? Oh, no. Swayam, would you like to read it?
Sure.
You need to sit a little closer to the microphone, dear.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. More traffic than you think. God stood at the shore of himself and dove in. How can he do things like that? Anything goes with the big guy, I guess. A divine splash happened. Billions of drops were propelled into space. I said to a drop shooting past me one night, "Where you going? What's the hurry? Slow down." It did, and we talked for a while, that drop and I. Some angels too came by. There is more traffic than you think. Cruising. More traffic than you think. God stood at the shore of himself and dove in. How can he do things like that? Anything goes with the big guy, I guess. A divine splash happened. Billions of drops were propelled into space. I said to a drop shooting past me one night, "Where you going? What's the hurry? Slow down." It did, and we talked for a while, that drop and I. some angels too came by. There is more traffic than you think. Cruising.
Now, this is Ladinsky himself, I think, being playful. I don't think that the saint took quite this attitude. I sense Ladinsky kind of putting a hand into the pie here. The word cruising, it has kind of a naughty meaning. Cruising, being out and about in the city at night, looking for excitement, and maybe even something on beyond just excitement. And it has that very definitely that meaning in the homosexual community. So it's and also traffic is a word that is used by both the sex trade and by the homosexual community. So it's I'm pretty sure Saint Teresa of Avila didn't. Well, anyway, these are just my suppositions. But I think the content of the poem is there, that God drove in and all of these drops. Anybody got an idea? I do not. What is one of these drops that she could talk with it, that it could speed up or slow down? Any idea?
Could be rays of sun.
Say it again.
Rays of sun rays. There could be billions propelled into space, the whole universe. Sun rays will shine the whole universe, no matter where you are at. I was just thinking, maybe it could be that.
Oh, that certainly is a legitimate interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
I still can't, for myself, make any head or tails of it. What the drops might be, that they're beings, certainly. They're somehow beings, because they can speed up and slow down and have a conversation and respond to suggestions. Anything else from anyone?
Perhaps it's just another way, like some people say, from the one divine light or fire, many sparks came out.
Yeah, I think there's a relationship with that. You're
So
right.
maybe this is just a different analogy for everything kind of
Yeah,
came
well,
from God.
there are the five elements, and one is water, and one is fire. So the sparks is one use of the metaphor of one element, and drop is use the metaphor of another. Well, I can't think of anything else about that one.
I wonder why that one word goes is in italics.
Say it again. What word is that, dear?
Anything goes with the big guy, I guess. The word goes,
Yeah.
G-O-E.
Well, that again might relate to the words traffic and cruising. Anything goes. There's a Monty Python skit about being a goer, which is it has a naughty meaning.
Well, for some reason, when you started talking about cruising, the word cruising made me think of cruising for burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked that up real quick.
Yeah.
There aren't many lyrics to that song. I must be free, my fake ID frees me. Gotta do a few things to make my life complete. I gotta live my life out on the street. The difference between us is not very far. Cruising for burgers in daddy's new car. My phony freedom car brings to me instantly ecstasy. You know who that is?
No.
It's Frank Zappa.
Oh my goodness.
Frank Zappa song, Cruising for Burgers.
Well, now that you say it, it fits right into his genre, all right.
So that's kind of reminded me, and the splashing and the freedom and is this real? And the song, the thing about God stood at the shore of himself and dove in, and a divine splash happened, billions of drops propelled. I mean, it's the Big Bang.
Ah,
That's what
whoa.
Yeah, God
Whoa, yeah, there you are.
himself and dove in. I am one, I shall become many. And we
There
have a
you
Big
are,
Bang.
dear.
I mean, that's what I have thought since maybe the first time I read this poem.
Well, I think you've nailed it. It's her own
Yeah,
metaphor for the Big Bang.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, then, yeah, that would make sense then, that everything created, the drops being the first kind of condensations of what happened from the splash. And then there are angels too.
Yeah.
The angels are the ever free souls.
Mm, yeah.
Well, Cindy, would you like to read this one, When the Holy Thaws?
Sure. When the holy thaws, a woman's body, like the earth, has seasons. When the mountain stream flows, when the holy thaws, when I am most fragile and in need, it was then, it seems, God came closest. God, like a medic on a field, is tending to our souls. Our horns get locked with desires, but don't hold yourself too accountable, for all desires are really innocent. That is what the compassion in his eyes tells me. Why this great war between the countries inside of us? What are all these insane borders we protect? What are all these different names for the same church of love we kneel in together? For it is true, together we live, and only at that shrine where all are welcome will God sing loud enough to be heard. Our horns got locked with the earth and sky in some odd marriage ritual. So what? Don't worry. We should be proud of ourselves for everything we helped create in this magic world. And God is always there if you feel wounded. He kneels over this earth like a divine medic, and his love thaws the holy in us. Yeah. When the holy thaws, a woman's body, like the earth, has seasons. When the mountain stream flows, when the holy thaws, when I am most fragile and in need, It was then, it seems, God came closest. God, like a medic on a field, is tending our souls. Our horns get locked with desires, but don't hold yourself too accountable, for all desires are really innocent. That is what the compassion in his eyes tells me. Why this great war between the countries inside of us? What are all these insane borders we protect? What are all these different names for the same church of love we kneel in together? For it is true, together we live, and only at that shrine where all are welcome will God sing loud enough to be heard. Our horns got locked with the earth and sky in some odd marriage ritual. So what? Don't worry. We should be proud of ourselves for everything we helped create in this magic world. And God is always there if you feel wounded. He kneels over this earth like a divine medic, and his love thaws the holy in us. I love that metaphor of the medic.
Yeah, I do too.
I think this is one of the sweetest poems in the whole book.
It really is sweet, isn't it, Swayam?
It is. I mean, if we just sort of hold on to this, it's just fills the heart.
Yes, it does. And this idea of when you're the most fragile is when God comes nearest. Your eyes may be closed to it or they may be open, but she says he is tending to our souls, whether we know it or not. Anyone else have anything to say about this lovely poem?
This
Well, I
reminds
love
me.
that.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I was going to say, I love the last line there. In his love thaws the holy in us. Like the holy is always there. It just needs to be like revealed or thought, you know?
Yes.
I don't know. That's just, it is very lovely and very touching. I agree. It's just so beautiful.
But I think you've hit on something very important, Heidi, when you said it's always there in us. You know, the metaphor of thawing implies that it's frozen somehow. It's not available to us because it's somehow frozen. But God thaws the holy in us when we have this relationship with God, when we have this sense of God. It thaws that frozenness. And that frozenness, I think, you know, if I were to think what is the frozenness that I've experienced, it comes from fear and doubt. That's what freezes me in place.
I think another way that I'm thinking to interpret this is one time in response to one of my questions, Brother Shankar, I don't know what the question was. You had asked me a question in return, like, haven't I ever loved anything? So we all love so many things at different times, but we haven't recognized that time the holy in us is coming out.
Yes, very well said. Thank you. Haima, you had something to say and then you yielded to Heidi. What was
Sure.
it you wanted to say?
It reminded me this when I'm fragile and in need, God comes closest. And when I'm wounded, God is always there. That reminds me of the footprints that I strongly believe of Jesus Christ. You know, when I'm well, I see 4 footprints in the sand. When
Mhm.
I'm not well, he is carrying me, so I only see 2 footprints. That's what I was reminded of.
Very,
And
very, very apt. Yes.
I strongly believe in that, Brother Shankara. Very strongly believe in those
Well,
footprints.
I think
Always happens to me.
I think that exactly tracks with what this poem is talking.
Thank you.
That when we're well, we can walk with God. When we're fragile, when we're not well, we are being carried. Anything else?
And then to that line, why this great war between the countries inside of us? I interpret that as like perhaps the fear or the, I don't know, whatever doubt you might have, you know, the internal demons inside that we all deal with, you know.
Yeah,
That's how I read that.
exactly. Fear and doubt and shame and pride. And, you know, they all those aspects of the ego. They're what causes the war within us.
And then that next line, he says, why are all these insane borders? What are all these insane borders we protect? You know?
Yes, and what is your answer to that question, Heidi? I'd be interested to know.
Well,
What it,
I think those insane borders are kind of like the fear and the doubt and the shame, all that. I think that's what those are.
so they create borders within us. Yeah,
Right. I mean, it just holds you back, or it prevents you from loving or expressing yourself fully, or
oh,
all of that,
well said.
you
Yes,
know, all that stuff.
beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
we do protect them. We try so hard not to, and I guess that's the whole part of the spiritual process, is to stop protecting those borders.
To allow ourselves to be thawed,
Yeah.
you know, because we're frozen in place by those borders. Good. Well, I think we've said a lot about this poem that Saint Teresa of Avila would have applauded, or maybe is applauding, since all of them say, in one way or another, I'm not gone anywhere. I'm still with you. Heidi, would you like to read I Loved What I Could Love?
Sure. I loved what I could love. I had a natural passion for fine clothes, excellent food, and lively conversation about all matters that concern the heart still alive, and even a passion about my own looks. Vanities, they do not exist. Have you ever walked across a stream, stepping on rocks so not to spoil a pair of shoes? All you can touch, swallow, or say aids in our crossing to God and helps unveil the soul. Life smooths us, rounds, perfects, as does the river the stone, and there is no place our beloved is not flowing through the current's force you may not always like.
Mhm.
Our passions help to lift us. I loved what I could love until I held him. For then all things, every world disappeared. I loved what I could love. I had a natural passion for fine clothes, excellent food, and lively conversation about all matters that concern the heart still alive, and even a passion about my own looks. Vanities, they do not exist. Have you ever walked across a stream, stepping on rocks so not to spoil a pair of shoes? All we can touch, swallow, or say aids in our crossing to God and helps unveil the soul. Life smooths us, rounds, perfects, as does the river the stone. And there is no place our beloved is not flowing through the current's force you may not always like. Our passion helps to lift us. I loved what I could love until I held him. For then all things, every world disappeared.
What a lovely confession this poem is. And she says, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Fine clothes, excellent food, lively conversation, even a passion about her own looks. And then she says, it's not vanity, that doesn't exist. And then she gives this very homely metaphor. Have you ever walked across a stream stepping on stones so not to spoil a pair of shoes? Well, of course, we all have. You know, everybody who's ever walked across a stream, if there's stones and no bridge, they'll do that. And she's saying all of what we're doing that seems to some so reprehensible is not. And then she, all we can touch, swallow, or say. That pretty much covers it. And I love the way she brings in, sometimes we don't like the smoothing process. Beloved is flowing through the current's force, though you may not always like it. Though the current's force you may not always like. Flowing though the current's force you may not always like. Anyone else have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I think in the end, though, she probably is talking about becoming one with the absolute.
Mm-hmm.
Because she says, I loved what I could love, so all these other things. But that helped to perfect her until she then held him, and then everything disappeared.
Yes, when she was one with the absolute. Perfect. So I think that's a perfect analysis. Everything is perfecting us, as she's saying. And not to worry, not to get yourself all flapped up about it. Pretty straightforward message in this poem. Of course, there are many, many dimensions to it, but anyone else have anything to say about it? The discussion is less tonight, of course, because we have fewer people. Okay, it's 8:52, so I guess we have time to read this next poem and discuss it, and we can come back to it. It's rather a longish one. Swayam, would you like to read it, please?
Sure, Brother Shankara. Two in love to chat. His hands can shape through ours, and our sounds can somehow echo what God has never said. For the divine is really speechless. It is two in love. It is two in love to chat. The holy wind ruffled our hair and caused a lot of commotion. We think God made some rules, but how can that be true when our souls are really the governor of all? His mind can shape through ours. Our bodies and the earth are as clay. Is that not so, my dear? I have a lovely habit. At night in my prayers, I touch everyone I have seen that day. I shape my heart like theirs, and theirs like mine. Two in love to chat. His hands can shape through ours, and our sounds can somehow echo what God never said. For the divine is really speechless. It is two in love to chat. The holy wind ruffled our hair and caused a lot of commotion. We think God made some rules, but how can that be true when our souls are really the governor of all? His mind can shape through ours. Our bodies and the earth are as clay. Is that not so, my dear? I have a lovely habit. At night, in my prayers, I touch everyone I have seen that day. I shape my heart like theirs, and theirs like mine.
Once again, we have the sense of God as the all-loving and all-forgiving.
I think this reminds me of what Haima has said often, that it is uh, going into silence that helps us get closer to God, because it says our sounds can somehow echo what God has never said. For the divine is really speechless. So we
Yes,
say so many things.
Yes, I think you're right. And it's good to point to what Haima has said, that this is a truth. You know, God's saint after saint has said, particularly Meister Eckhart is very strong on this, that God's way of being and communicating with us is in silence. And he says there's a great silence inside us that calls to us to come and visit there. And that what we do, when we do, we are filled. We are filled with the divine spirit. Too in love to chat. Well, shall we take this up again next week, or shall we just go on to the next one next week? What do you think?
Depends on if anybody can remember next week where we were.
Well, Heidi is good at remembering. She's
Yeah.
good at marking the place.
Well, let's pick it up again next week then. How
Okay.
about that?
Okay. All right.
293.
Okay.
So I've highlighted it on my Kindle edition, and we'll just I'm just, his hands can shape through ours, and our sounds can somehow echo what God has never said. So, all right, dears. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this realm of confusion and misunderstanding to thine abode of clarity and understanding. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Amen. So until next week, beloved ones, of course, any of you who choose to join us, there will be a class tomorrow night about the life of Holy Mother. That's our Tuesday night class. Anything else? Any final thoughts from anyone? All right. Well, I'm so glad we're here. And when you do talk to June, Heidi, tell her we missed her, and we hope that whatever was occupying her time was satisfying and joyous.
I'll do it. I'll probably touch base with her tomorrow and see how she's
Okay,
doing.
good. All right.
Thank you for this evening.
Well, thank you, dears.
Thank you, Brother
This is
Shankar.
something we do together.
Good night,
And this
everyone.
is something we absolutely do together. You know, which of us could do what we do here alone? We can't. We're with our own thoughts, and that's fine. As my late wife used to say, alone in good company. But it's wonderful to be in your company and share this with you. So good night, dears.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.